fucking up. It actually shut down the it shut down the class. I mean, whatchamacallit and all that stuff. Okay, we're on Facebook. Now
Hey guys.
let's okay, there we are.
Technical difficulties.
Yep. It's all good. We're gonna get on there. It's all good. Look, it's all good. We're gonna get on there. Okay, so we are on there live on Facebook. So Facebook, we are live. Now we got to go off of all these Facebooks on the computers. Okay. Okay, because it gives you so much crazy feedback and shit when you're on there. Okay.
I've never done one yet.
I'm so excited. We are live on Facebook. Let me share this. I'm going to share it into the groups. Let's see. Excuse me. I had to get me some tea. So we were trying to get started. And I was like, we're going to get some tea. That's what we're going to do. I'm going to get some tea. All right. Sharing it to the groups. Her. Write your book and heal or something like that.
Check to see it. I think it might be giving you another link for the Zoom for me. My computer just came back up.
Yeah, we ain't going. We're going right now. All right, there were some people they wanted to be tagged. Let me see. There were some people that wanted to be tagged when we came on.
Okay.
Let me see who it could be. Because they were on like our on our post.
Right.
And they were like, we want to be tagged. I was like, oh.
We're special.
Right? I was like, all right, we can tag you. I'm listening to us behind. It's so funny. Y'all, we're going to get started. We are navigating these tech issues and all this stuff. And then we will start talking about spiritual growth.
Oh, I can hear us too.
Usually I turn the phone down because it gives so much crazy feedback because you'll be hearing yourself like 2 seconds behind.
Yeah, I can hear it from you.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I know, because I had it on and didn't turn it down because I was having brain fog out the butt. For real, for show. That thing was not even no joke. I was like, how is this happening to me? Let me see. Okay, here it is. No, that ain't it. There's a tarot. All right. Okay. I think we just gonna do this thing, get started. It's all good. So this is our inaugural show that we're doing, Ebony and Ivory on spiritual growth. I'm so excited about it because God knows it needs to be shared and we need to talk about it. And many people, most people don't want to talk about it. They have
No, they don't. They want to hide from it, and that doesn't solve anything. It doesn't make it so that you can heal. You got to acknowledge it. You got to acknowledge that pain.
Exactly. So Grace Cicero wants to be tagged, and Natasha Nathula. Okay. Let's go in and tag them. Okay, there she is. And yep, there she is. And Sean wanted to be tagged. All right. Okay, those are all the people. Hi, Kia. Thank you for joining us. I appreciate you sitting with us while we navigate this tech issue and all these things that we're dealing with, and sharing these things out and all of that, and actually getting on the Zoom call. So that is like amazing. All right, so we got the people tagged that asked us to be tagged, and I got that sitting up so we can see comments if we need to. All right, so super excited to be here. So Megan and I, we actually did an interview. She interviewed for my show, Straight Out of Savannah. So if you haven't seen it, make sure you get a chance to check it out, because I think that her show is actually premiering on Saturday. So super excited about that. It's going to premiere on my channel at 4 p.m. Pacific time and 7 p.m. Eastern time. So if you get a chance to watch it, watch it. If not, make sure you check it out on the replay. And while you're there, make sure that you smash the subscribe button and smash the bell so that you will be notified when I go live and when we post new shows. So that out of the way, thank you so much for joining us. It's been amazing just being in Megan's energy. So if you don't know, she is going to tell you about herself, and then I'll tell you about me. So go ahead, Megan, you tell about yourself.
Hey everyone. So I'm Megan. I am a intuitive spiritual mindset coach. I've had a long spiritual journey. I grew up in a traumatic environment. I grew up with Antichrist as parents. You know, honestly, I've experienced, you know, the physical, mental, verbal, emotional, sexual, financial abuse. And it led me to create a lot of bad people into my life because I didn't heal. So my aura attracted lots of bad people, and I continued until I finally had to accept of like, why is this happening? What is going on in my life? Because it doesn't resonate with me. It doesn't resonate who my soul is. And that really started my soul journey and my soul healing of who am I and why is this stuff? And I had to acknowledge a lot of things in my life that weren't me. Right. It was energy of other people. Yeah. But I also had to learn it my own way. You know, I think in some ways you can hear a lot of information from a lot of people, but it really starts with you. And that's why, like, I'm really drawn to saying that I'm a mindset coach, because it starts with your mind. It starts with the wind element. It starts with changing a lot of those programs that are with you, that if you want to change your reality, you have to change you. And it starts with your mind, and it starts of reprogramming and getting all that negativity, everything out, and working through that mind first, then working through that body, going in through the emotions. And so I'm just really passionate about it. And I love our energy together. And I love that we can sit here and we can talk about it and be real about it, take some of the fluff out of it, and get to the real, you know, center, because healing doesn't have to be difficult. That's one thing, like, I've learned is, like, we really have to keep it simple, Sam, in many ways. And so I want to just enlighten people and bring awareness to certain ways of being. And that's me. That's Megan. That's me, my glow, my glory.
Yep, I love it. And that is actually one of the things that brought us together, right? We started talking about this stuff and how it's toxic, really, a lot of it that they put out there, and the things that they say. It's like,
about yourself.
Right. It's like, what? I mean, what are you really? I mean, are you really a healer? Is kind of what the questions that we ask sometimes to some people, because we see, you know, it's like, do you even care about people?
Yeah.
You know, because you have to care about people in order to do this work. I truly believe, I hope so, at least. And so I'm passionate about that, but I am also here as an intuitive healer as well. And I have a similar story to hers, but not in that way. So mine, it was lots of religious programming that I dealt with, because came from a family where there's lots and lots of pastors and bishops and shit like that. And my grandmother was a pastor, preacher, teacher, prophetess, evangelist type. And so, you know, I grew up spoon-fed the Bible, so don't come at me like that. And I tell people that because they come at me like that, and I'm like, don't come at me like that, because, you know, you will lose there, because I know the Bible. You know, we were spoon-fed from a child, the Bible, I said. And then I went to ministry school at one point as well. So that is another thing. That's why I'm like, nah, you can't come in that direction, because I know that stuff, you know. And so I started thinking about it. And as we began to talk and realize that so many people are so misguided, you know, and so much bullshit is out here in the planet about spirituality and, you know, and this journey. And it's like, you know, we want to come and talk about it. We want to come and share, you know, our experiences, not only that, but also what we've learned and what we've embodied, because so much is out there. I mean, you can literally Google almost any damn thing, you know. It almost, you know, it almost makes me suspect, because, you know, years ago we had to go to the library to find out any of this shit, or you had to find you a bookstore, or I used to love to go on Goodwill and find books, because you could find all kinds of old books and things that you might not find at other places. And of course, you know, it was 50 cents or $1 too, so that made a difference. But it's like, you know, you just can't. It's like, come on, people, you know, why are you telling people that, you know, they got to sit, meditate, and cross-legged on the damn floor? What about people that's paralyzed? They can't get up. They meditate.
So what?
So you don't want them to meditate? You know? I thought about Dr. Joe Dispenza when he shared his story. He talked about how when he started his awakening process, he was in the bed paralyzed. He was in the bed paralyzed. So of course he meditated and visualized laying in the damn bed, not on the floor, cross-legged on the floor, you know, and all this kind of crap that people tell you. And I'm like, no, you can actually meditate while you're washing dishes. You can meditate while you're folding clothes. Why? I know, because I've done that. Go right out of my body, you know. And the thing is people are like telling these lies in there, and what they're doing is they're stopping people from growth. And so that is one of the reasons why we're here, is to, you know, share with people that, you know, no, you can actually grow meditating while laying in your damn bed. You know, you can actually do all of these things. It's like, come on. And it just seems like so much rigidity in this. Okay, who's coming in? Who wants to come?
That might be me. My computer came back on.
I'm like, what? Did we invite people? No. Okay. There you are. So, you know, just actually being able to have these conversations, and I'm appreciative of Facebook, you know, because we can actually come on here and talk about this stuff, you know, and we can actually reach people, you know, in the ethers and in the planet. Right. Okay, she shared the link. Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you, Kia. I love you for that.
I got a backdraft.
Yeah, you got to get off of one of those devices. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, I feel like a normal person now on the computer.
Love it, you're here. I know, bro. I feel like that too. I don't even like doing it on the phone. If I can help it, I'd be like, no, I want to try to. Yeah, I need to see, you know. Yeah.
Yeah, so, I felt like I was like cross-eyed.
Right, like trying to look. Especially when you turn it landscape, because I don't know about you, but I never know where to look.
I don't either. So I'm just like.
But yeah, so so we're here, and we are wanting to, you know, just share a little bit about, you know, this spiritual growth process and some of the things that we have experienced, you know, on this journey, because we know that there are people that are watching us that are on the journey and they want to know, right?
Yeah. And, you know, and there's so much simple things, and that's what one of the things like we do connect so well about, is because of the openness of the simplicity things. But it's awareness. And I think so many people lose that whole aspect, is that I think you get so drawn into some of the feelings. And I think that in a lot of the healing process, we get drawn into the shame and the guilt that we even feel this way. But yet we don't take the reward that we're acknowledging that we even have those feelings. And so that's something that needs to work with, and, you know, in shadow aspects and maybe things. Like I told you, I kind of like really wanted to touch on the word rejection. Tonight, like
definitely
because
that's huge.
It's huge, but I think there's just so many. I think people miss the blessings. And rejection, they miss. And you take that back, and, you know, I'll use a lot of words because it kind of goes to a lot of parts, and this is where it's like, it's healing can be simple in ways, because rejection goes to your mother wound, your father wound, your teen wound, your inner child wound. And like we don't, people go and they separate those out and do that, where there's so many things. And it started this week of where I was like, oh, we got to get this going, we got to go, is because I was talking to this person about business, and, you know, like my business and launching.
So I'm going to speak to a few of the ladies while we're doing. Melissa and friend Deja have joined, and Key, thank you guys for joining us.
Thank you, ladies.
We appreciate you. Okay, go ahead.
But, you know, like they told me like I was afraid to do stuff because of rejection. And I was like, you really don't know me, do you? Because the fact of the matter is, rejection is the one feeling like I am the most comfortable with.
Right. You know that one.
I know that. I was born into a family I was rejected by. I was, like I said, like I was born into the Antichrist, you know, like every aspect of like what you don't, God is not, is my family, were my parents. And like I was beaten for being light. I was beaten for saying God was love. God made the world go around. You know, I was, so rejection is like the one feeling like I'm good with. So like there is no rejection. But you know, you take that into all parts of your life, the word rejection in relationships. Well, you know, for years, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? Why don't my parents love me? Why do my parents hate me? Well, you know what? I'm glad that they hate me. I'm glad that they, you know, couldn't change me, that they didn't make me into me. I'm glad that they, you know, they rejected me. And so it's like, you know, we have to change that, and that view.
And we also have to realize the gift in the garbage, because that really is what that is. It's the gift in the garbage, you know, because nobody wants to be rejected, especially not by your damn parents. However, it happened, it occurred. So what are we going to do with it?
And it taught me, though, it taught me that there was other sources out there. There were other. So why are we sitting here fighting like relationships or something like that? Someone doesn't like you, you know, and I know it's like, that's
fucking there are billions of people in the world is how I think about it. I'm like, you don't like me? It's okay, because there are billions of people out in the world, and I'm sure some of them do. You know, I'm not everybody's cup of damn tea, and neither.
I got a massive aura. I got a massive aura. I know my aura aggravates people.
See, and the reflector in me is what, for sure. I know. I realize that, and I'm okay with it. It used to bother me. You know, it really did. It bothered me because I was definitely a people pleaser. You know,
completely.
And it bothered me, you know, that people, why wouldn't you like me? Why, you know, what did I do? You know, what is it that I'm doing that, you know, people are not liking me or rejecting me or whatever? But then you realize it ain't got a damn thing to do with you, not personally.
No,
you know,
it goes into
energy.
Dark shadow, even though, you know, I did an exercise not too long ago on, because I was researching a lot, you know, kind of watching some people's stuff on like the dark shadow, and it was just, everything was so confusing. So confusing as to like, people are like, what is my dark shadow? What is my dark shadow? So I pulled out some of my old psychology books, and I was reading through some of them. And, you know, Tammy, I found this like simple little exercise to establish your dark shadow. Like, what is your dark shadow? And what you do is you make a box, to get a piece of paper, Journaling is key in so many parts of healing people. Like,
Yes.
get notebooks.
Look, like, please journal.
Please journal.
Or make yourself a folder on your damn phone if you got to do that.
Yeah, journaling's better though, because it really gets it out. It's embodying it.
Yeah, I believe that. But you know, so many of us in this society.
Yeah, that's why we have issues with tech.
Right.
But you know, right, I like pick the person who like you dislike the most, the person who triggers you the most. Who is that person? What is it about that person? And write down their characteristics. Write down what it is. They're greedy, they're hateful, they're spiteful, they're vengeful. Guess what? All those things that you just wrote out, those are your dark shadow. Put a line above it and write my shadow. And if you want to heal those aspects so those people don't trigger you anymore, you have to apply love to that. Apply love to those. How do you not embody those? Give yourself praise. Give yourself praise that you don't. Be happy. Be happy that that person with those characteristics rejected you so you don't embody those.
Yes.
You know? And then the same aspect of the Venn diagram aspect that you see a lot when it comes to shadow work, you know, is like the bad side, you're in the middle, and then there's the other side. You know, where I'm like, okay, how does that apply to me? But, you know, sitting down with this word rejection that triggered me this week into all of this made that Venn diagram make sense for once in my life. But then, you know, like the parts of like a person who like you want to be more like, well, then you know what? Write down those characteristics. That's your light
That
side.
makes the most sense. Oh my God. And you're right. That's so simple.
It's so
instead
simple.
of all that other shit that they they put you through.
They put you through, and all the stuff to shame you, guilt you, and make you feel worse, and to kind of like put you
looking at
down.
your pain points and all that shit. Well, they're pain points because they're painful.
Right. But if you look at it this way, we don't really
want to experience. Do we really want to experience more pain?
No, we already did it.
Right.
We already did it. If we're where we are now, it's because we've processed it. So why do I want to go back and repeat it? That's living in the past. That's dwelling.
Yeah, my husband always says, you know, people always want to go back to Egypt.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, okay, so it wasn't good when you were there. He really didn't like it. And so you left, but now here you are talking about you want to go back to there.
Right.
It wasn't good when you was there. So why would you think it would be good if you went back?
Right.
You know,
I thought about this in this exercise of that dark shadow, and then I realized like the light side, and there the Venn diagram made sense. Like that whole Venn diagram of like that, of like the good and the bad. But then also I took it even a step further. Well, there's the Libra. There's the scale of justice. Where are you in that? You know, onto that. Where are you balancing? Where do you need to show yourself love on that dark side so you aren't embodying those type of feelings, those attributes, those type of things to raise?
Right. So to be quite clear on it, we need to embody love.
Yeah.
That would like take care of all that shit.
It would take love, but we know that's not as simple as we would like it to be, you know.
And then it could be.
It could be.
You know, it could really be because
if you change your mind.
Because
but you got to get rid of all those negative thoughts. You got to get rid of. That's what I was
going to say. So many times things are hard because we make it hard, you know. And I'm the Lord Jesus. I'm the queen of that, you know. Because there are times when I hear Spirit say to me, "Don't make this hard." Because why? Because I'm making it hard. Because, you know, if you make it hard and you don't achieve the thing that you want to achieve because you've made it hard, well, now you have that excuse.
But
you know, it's hard. I can do it, you know.
But that's that expectation.
Yeah.
And that's where surrender comes into place of, you know, you've got to put it out there and then let it go. And that was hard in my own journey. That was very hard for me to do because I'm a perfectionist. You know, when it comes to human design, I got the 1858 channel. So, you know, judgment aspects, everything like that, because I have that gift of vision. I have that gift of I can look at you, I can see your aura, I can see all those things about you. And once I get to kind of make the rapport with you and I talk with you a little bit, I can tell you exactly what you need to have done to fix you. Well,
see, and that's an amazing gift.
it is, but I can't I've
But you had
experienced a lot
to,
of bitterness. I got to wait for that invitation.
well, the thing is too, you also have to just release that expectation of that, of the weight. You know what I mean? Just release it.
Well, some people aren't ready to hear it. There was times in my journey I owe probably quite a few people, strangers who, you know, I signed up for this master class, I signed up for that master class in the beginning and stuff like that. And, you know, they would tell me, you know, like, you have to accept responsibility. And I used to be like, fuck you. Like, you think as a child I deserved to be beat? Do you think I deserve to have a metal baseball bat taken to me at the age of 6? Do you think I deserve to have? How did I ask?
You think you asked for that?
Right. But, you know, in healing aspects, so it's like I'm spiritually, I'm giving those people, I'm sorry because I cussed you out because I didn't get it, because I wasn't ready to receive. I wasn't ready to receive what they were telling me.
The thing is it's okay if you weren't ready to receive it. It's all right.
Everyone's path is different. Everyone's journey,
everyone's path, everyone's journey, everyone's people, you know, because it may not have been the people that, you know, you needed to work with in order for that kind of stuff, you know, because sometimes it's that.
Yeah. Well,
you know, sometimes they have the thing, you know, sometimes they have the thing, but they don't have the energy that you can deal with.
Right. And that's
for me, I'm huge on energy. I don't even let people braid my hair that have bad energy. Don't do it.
I haven't had my hair done in 2 years, so maybe that says something about people's energy.
Well, it was a while for me too with the pandemic, because you know, nobody was going to anybody's damn house or anything like that, and that's usually where you go get your hair braided, you know, and it's like, no, I'm good.
No, I don't want to get my hair done because I don't want to sit there and have to listen to the people. Like, I just don't want like the negative energy.
The energy.
Just
and
like,
that's,
you know,
that's the thing. It's like, it's almost like years ago when you used to go to beauty shops. It was nothing but just gossip drama. Yeah, I mean, everybody's gossiping about, especially if you lived in a small town or, you know, an area where everybody fucking knew each other or something. And they just talk, you know, it's just so much. And you're like, wait a minute, no. And then you're thinking, well, I would be thinking, I'm like, well, if they talk about them like that, how the hell do they talk about me
when I walk out of here?
Right? When I walk out the door, I'm like, I can see. They be like, you know, that bitch is, you know, she's something. She's a piece of work. And, you know, and I'm like, yeah, no, I don't need that in my life. I'm good. But that is a huge thing, that resistance.
Yeah.
It's a huge thing, because the thing is think about how many times just in this conversation we talked about allowing and flow and releasing.
Yeah.
Right. Just in this few minutes that we've been on, it's like,
I know we've touched so much already. I mean,
yeah, that's what I mean. We've talked about all these things. It's like, okay, yes. So that is really the space that we want to be in, is allowing. You know, allowing the experiences, even the painful ones, you know, because I'm doing this healing thing now where she's teaching us to allow the resistance and to basically whatever is going on in your body, because it's a healing thing. She's like, whatever's going on in your body, allow it. Because what happens is we are in this fight or flight, and we are wanting to fight everything. You know, we want to fight the disease or the condition or whatever, the cancer or the whatever, you know, the depression, the anxiety. We want to fight it, you know, because we're fighting.
Yeah.
But no, don't fight.
And see, I'm not a fighter.
See,
so out of the four, so, you know, you have the fight, flight, fawn, and freeze. I am a flight. Oh, I got some running shoes, but I'm also a fawn. Like, I go into submissive because I'm that people pleaser aspect. So I just go along, and, you know, I realized over the years of how much I gave myself away until basically I would explode.
Yes.
And people would be like, where is this coming from? Years.
Yeah, because this is what was going on. I was, you know, suffering all these years. And so now it's time, you know, to get that done. Yeah, no, I was, and I've always been the fighter. And I think about it because when my mother shared with me that she was thinking about abortion when I was, you know, in the womb. My mother was 18 years old when I was born. So I
Right.
could understand that, especially during those times. I mean, that was
And
1968.
in well, you were in Georgia.
Georgia. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was like, I thought about that, and I was like, so I feel like I came out fighting,
Right.
like I fought to be here, fought to get here, My mom was tiny, so, I fought to get here. And I was like, oh my God, and then even as time went on, it felt like I just always fucking had to fight. I felt like Oprah in The Color Purple.
Yeah.
I got to
See,
fight all my life.
I've been hiding. It wasn't safe. I was hiding.
That too, because it's like, okay, here we go. And I see that now, even in my life. It's like, okay, no, and it's wild because my husband is the one that, I say is the more stable as far as that. Something happens, I want to fight. I'm ready to, no, they're not gonna do you like that. And that's how I am. I start, my head, and it's just done. But it's like, he's like, no, let's, no, we're gonna go about it like this, we're gonna talk and we're gonna blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay.
See, and I'm not even gonna talk. You're not even worth my time or my energy. Like, if you want to act that way,
it's done. Peace out. I know it's funny because even with my kids, they would be like, they would tell the school people at school, please don't call my mama. Cause she gonna come down here and act crazy, because I would be like, nah, y'all don't treat my kids, I raised them in South Carolina in the suburbs.
Yeah. And see, my kids are gonna be like, don't call my mama, because she's gonna come give you a psychology lesson about how you've done wrong in this instance, and and how you could play better. And
you'd be like, you might not want that. Kids be like, you might not want that.
Yeah. I mean, it's bad. Like my 9-year-old will sometimes be like, Mom, you read too much. Like, you know too much.
And you read people too much too, probably, right?
I do. And you know what's the scarier part about that? And he doesn't get it at all yet. And I'm just like, oh, baby. He's a 3-5 projector, just like me. The only difference is he's an emotional, which now I completely understand on some of his like outbursts that he does. And I'm splenic. Okay. But so he's a 3-5 projector. So like he will grasp and he will start to understand.
Well, the good thing is you can share.
Yeah. But he doesn't want to know it right now. He doesn't want to.
No, it's not time. It ain't time. You give him time, eventually. Because, when we're woo, we have woo kids, really. They don't always want to admit it, but they really are.
But he is on the spiritual, though. That is the one kind of cool. Like, he is on some of the spiritual stuff of like crystals and different things like that. He does kind of like embrace that. I was teaching him some the Reiki. And he's really cool because, he can feel it and he does it until like my older son's like, Mom, that's just friction. And I'm like, yeah, okay.
There's always one, I always tell him, like, there's always one that just, doesn't want to believe, and it's okay.
Yeah. But I'm like, but you believed it on Karate Kid, right? When Miyagi did it to Daniel's
wax on and wax off. Yeah.
He did it. And when he healed the leg and he was like, well, yeah. And I was like, same thing, buddy-o.
And this is real life.
I know. I was like, this is real life. It's not real when Mom does it.
Right. It's like, okay. But so now when you are feeling into like spiritual growth, because I want to just talk a little bit more about that before we depart.
All right.
So I want to just wonder, as you were growing, when you started in your process, how did your life change?
Tower moment. Massive. Every aspect of my life completely fell apart. The illusion, the ego, everything that I thought I had built, everything I thought I was doing right, every part of my life was a lie. It was a lie. There was a complete illusion that my ego completely, my ego ran. It was like, oh crap, this bitch found out. Like it tower, and
she got it.
That tower completely came crumbling down on top of me, and I thought I was gonna die. I mean, I really did of, you know, and it took me a long time to realize also one thing I might say that might tick some people off right now, but it is something you have to learn. There's no one coming to save you.
That's it. That is the key. There is no Prince Charming. Nobody's going to come and kiss you on your lips and wake your ass up.
Nope. Nope, there's no one. And I was stupid in that aspect. I thought, like, I cried wolf, you know, I cried wolf. I thought people would come running. I thought people, and I got myself hurt even more by that, because it was like, what? But those people had seen kind of what was going on in my life. Now they were, you know, I look at them as bad people because of the fact that they never told me. Like, they saw things that I didn't see because of my ego. I was blinded. I was completely blinded by some of the stuff, you know. They knew. So they're kind of like looking at me like, bitch, you deserve that kind of aspect, you know. And it was like, well, did I? I mean, if I wasn't aware, did I deserve it?
I was gonna say, if you didn't know, how do you deserve it? But, you know, there's arguments about that too. I mean,
I'm thankful. But you know what? I'm thankful. I'm thankful that it kind of happened that way. And I'm thankful that that tower completely fell down on top of me, because it drew me to God. It drew me to realize that God was always there with me. God was there. God was within me, not some magical person up in the sky.
Yes, God in you as you. Yes.
He is one with me, that oneness, that God conscious mind of that he is within me.
Yes.
And I finally was able to start taking one stone at a time. And I mean, there had been a million stones, you know. I mean, it was a big tower. It was a massive tower that fell, you know. But yeah, I mean, I cut everyone out, you know. I cut everyone out. I'm still very alone, you know, but I put the intention out there to God, universe, source, whatever you want to call it, you know, to bring my spirit tribe to me, bring those people who are going to help me connect more, bring those people who are going to align. And, you know, I cut off all the people who were like friends with like my ex-husband and stuff, who knew different things, because like, I'm not from South Carolina. So all the people that I was really friends with were all like people he knew, you know. I didn't really know them. I just knew them because I was his wife, you know. So all of that had to go. But I'm here and I have kids, and they're, you know, somewhat established, you know, here. And so it's not as easy with divorce just to pick up and leave.
No,
so
not when your kids are young.
Now when your kids are young. So, you know, I've had to do it, and I've done it on my own. And I'm thankful of it, because like, I've always known I was strong. I've always known I was brave. I always known I had courage, you know, a courageous fighter, lion, you know, empress in my body, but I never embraced it. I never embraced it, even though I did, but I was such a child. I didn't really know what I was doing, but I survived all that. I survived all that by myself. I survived all of that. I moved on, you know. I ran away when I was 16, you know, left again when I was 18. And I've been on my own, but I've had God.
Yes, absolutely. And, you know, the thing that I want to talk about right here is that how important a gratitude practice is, because I just heard you say, you know, you're grateful. And that is a practice that people don't realize is so huge for us, because when you start taking that love that you have and using it with the gratitude and saying, you know what, but irregardless of what happened in my life, I'm still grateful. You know, I'm grateful that even that thing happened, even though it might have been a bad thing, because, you know, we've all experienced those dark nights of the soul. That's why I was laughing when you were talking, because I was remembering and thinking about, you know, those dark night of the soul times, you know, and those times when, you know, when you felt alone, because typically really that is really when we begin to wake up, is when we feel alone. That's when we start waking up. We're like at this place, and it's wild in the awakening. It's like when you start going through all that stuff and the things start falling away and the people start falling away, the crazy houses that maybe, you know, weren't good for you, or in my case, the cars that, you know, needed to be repossessed because my ex was fucking other women in them and going to see other women. in my car. And so that car had to be repossessed because,
completely there with you on all of that.
because
I mean, I
God
lost
was
everything.
working it out for us. Hey, Brenda, thank you for joining. So it's like, when you're going through all that stuff, you're like, oh my God, really, is this really happening to me?
Really,
And,
you didn't want it in the first place. I mean, if
that's
you
the
really
thing.
think of it, and if you honored your soul in the beginning, and like I can even think back of like, when that whole tower is, and like where I am now, the fact of embodiment, my body warned me about so many things, but my
Mine
ego,
too.
my ego said, oh no, girl, you're good. Don't worry about that.
I actually had a trigger from a post on some girl did on, I think it was TikTok, and they put it, the reels. And I got triggered by that because something I thought about, it actually just made me think, and go back in my life, because the girl was talking about how she kept getting yeast infections. And I remembered that because that was me. It was ridiculous. I mean, it looked like I would heal one, and then maybe a week or two later, I had another one. And I wasn't diabetic, so it was none of that. My kidneys were fine, none of that. It just was because my ex, he was cheating, and he would bring home her stuff to me, and who knew, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so once I realized that, my mother actually was the one that said it. She goes, you keep getting all these yeast infections. You need to look into that. She said, and matter of fact, this is what she said. She said, that motherfucker's cheating. I was like, okay, and that actually really was the case.
Yeah. Your body was telling you.
My body was telling me. It's like, this, and I listened a lot, to my body at that time. I did, there were, and I think it probably saved my life when I think about it. Yeah. Listening to our bodies. And that's another thing we definitely want to bring out, is that, you need to listen to your body. Your body speaks to you.
Yeah. And see, I didn't listen to mine. I medicated my body. Like all of a sudden, like I started having panic attacks. I started having certain things that I had never had with all the traumatic situations that I had been in my life. Like, I never had panic attacks. Like I never had any of that stuff. Like, and why was all of this? Because I, in many ways, had freedom, because I wasn't around that childhood toxic environment, but I didn't realize that like I created that environment again to an extreme, even worse. And now my body. And so I'm like, well, now really what's wrong with me, and I went and I medicated. I went and I was like, again, my ego. So I got to turn the same question around with you. What was your moment?
Refresh my mind. I'm having
well, you said like when we went in, like so I went into the tower moment, like
yeah. So for me, it was after I got divorced from my ex. I started just feeling this thing, and it was just like an uneasiness, and it was wild because I think back on it now. I bought my car 2012 of May. I left South Carolina January 2013.
You're so lucky.
I hadn't even had my car. Well, my kids were grown by then, so that I could just leave. But I left, I bought that car, and I did not realize at the time that I was going to be making this trip. Right. I didn't know. I just knew I wanted a car. And the thing is, I already had a car, so it wasn't like I needed a car. I just wanted it, So I bought my car 2012 May, and then 2013 I left. And when I left because I heard Spirit speak to me at work at 3:00 in the morning and say, it's time for you to leave this place. And I was like, what does that mean? I was at work. I'm like, leave this job, leave this town, leave this state. I didn't know because I wasn't from there either. I'm from Georgia, but I had lived there for, I think 17 years or something. And so I was like, okay. And, and my kids had liked it there, because otherwise when I got divorced, I was actually thinking about leaving, but my kids liked it.
That was my plan.
My kids liked it. They were like, oh, mommy, you're on schools and our friends. And, all this. And because I had gone through that where, I had been to 10 schools in 12 years.
Yeah.
So, it was always switching, always moving, all this stuff. And so I had been through that, and I did not want my children to deal with that. I mean, I went to 2 high schools. So like I had one high school that I graduated from, and I knew some people there because I had lived in the town already before, but, not close relationships like the ones that at the high school where I was at for the other 3 years.
Right.
So it was like, I knew that kind of stuff, and I did not want to go through that. So I stayed there. And so when the time came, I was like, okay, time to go. I sat them down. They were all grown. I said, listen, it's time for mama to leave this place. And they're like, okay, and they knew, because they knew I had been wanting to leave, but I just didn't have opportunity, and I didn't, I hadn't had the word from the Lord. That's what I said. And so when I went, my cousin actually was like, you could come stay with me, blah, blah, blah. And so I did. I went out to Arizona. I stayed with my cousin. So I had a place to live. I didn't have a job. When I left there, I think I left there with something like $500 to go across the country. Yeah, I left on faith because I was like, I'll get there. I'll have enough to get there, and I didn't stop and get a hotel room or nothing. I drove straight. I stopped at a truck stop in Texas, and I slept for about 5 hours. And I got up. I found this trucker. He was so sweet and so nice, and he was an older man, and so he watched me. That's what I said. I told my husband, I said, I think he watched me, to make sure I was going to be safe, because I went in the truck stop. I had my car all packed down, and I, left everything in the car. All I took was my keys. I had my keys in my pocket, so nobody could rob me. Right. And I was like, I'm sitting in the truck stop, the places in Texas, well, a lot of places, they have those trucking areas where they have the seats that recline and all that kind of stuff. So I sat down, with the seats to recline, and I went to sleep for about 5 hours, and I woke up and I felt refreshed, and I drove on. So I didn't even get a hotel room or nothing, because I was like, I can't afford no hotel room. I ain't gonna waste no money like that. I gotta make sure I have money when I get there. And so I got there, and I was like, okay. And I was filled with hope and all that stuff. And girl, couldn't find a job. And that was like the first time ever in my life that as a nurse, I couldn't find a job.
And now you're questioning everything. What did I listen to this right? Did I hear
this
right?
I was like, maybe I really didn't hear. Maybe I really didn't hear God.
Maybe I wanted to hear that, but that wasn't really the case.
I was like, maybe that was the devil, because that's what they all used to say in the church, everything was the devil. And so I was like, and so, but what happened was I met an amazing mentor out there, which I know that he was for that time and space, because I have not been able to contact him since. Not been able to contact him. His numbers, whatever his numbers I had, they're not. And I can't even find him. I've been Googling him and stuff like that. I can't find him at all, but I know that he was there for me for that time. He taught me about flower essences, and I did some, and they actually helped. And, and then he started like really tutoring me on energy. He was an amazing naturopath, is what he was. But he was retired and stuff. And so he worked a lot in that field. And his voice, he reminds you, if you listen to Wayne Dyer, that's who he sounds like.
Okay.
So I was like, wow, when I heard his voice, I was like, I heard that before, because I have listened to Wayne Dyer,
Yeah.
And it was amazing. But he was there for me for that time, because I'm telling you, when I say that it took me months, I actually worked through the agency a little bit, but it was like so far and few and far between it. Basically, it was enough money to pay my car note, which was fucking astronomical at the time.
Right.
But it was enough to pay my car note and buy some food. Maybe, I think I paid 2 or 3 credit cards I had to make sure I had a little credit to use when I needed it. So I was like, I could pay that and buy some food and give my cousin some money for staying there. That was really all I made. It was really, and then when I think back on it, it was like my basics, what I needed at the time. Mm-hmm. And then,
which we take for granted sometimes.
Then I got fired from there. And I was like, I ain't never been fired in my life. It must be this crazy place I'm at. that was kind of what I was like, this has got to be this crazy place, because I've never been fired, and I've quit many jobs,
You're
but
right.
never been fired, so I was like, okay. And then I got a job, and I worked that job, girl, until I worked that job for just under 90 days. They fired me. Just under 90 days.
Now you're like, I'm out of this place.
The girl, because I didn't fit in with the culture. That's what they said. Now, my patients love me. They actually were asking about me when I left, because some of the nurses I knew, they would call me and they were like, girl, those people are crazy. And I was like, yeah, they are. And they were like, so-and-so, Miss So-and-so was like, where is my Tammy?
Your aura just rubbed the management the wrong way.
I was like, okay. And but it was something. And so after that, I got fired, and I didn't have a job for another 2 months. So it was like, oh my God. So I was like, something is just not right about this situation. What is really going on with me? Why I am getting fired from jobs I've never in my entire life gotten fired from a job. Even when I was late all the time. I went through that stage. Didn't get fired for that. And so I'm like, okay, this is crazy. So then I started really diving deep into energy at that time. That's when I really found like Reiki and all that kind of stuff. And I started really diving deep into all of that, and really studying and all of that, and just really, learning. And then I realized that, then of course, after that, one of my best friends that I have for, I don't know, 15 years or something like that, that went away too, because she wasn't on the journey and she couldn't understand mine.
Yeah.
And I kind of felt like that was going to happen, because, she was kind of religious too. And, she just couldn't understand the direction that I was going, and I was like, no, I'm not going in that direction, because, you people you put God in the box. And I love God, and God is huge.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, no, I'm not doing that. So as I went through all of that, I was like, okay, something is happening to me in my life, and I don't know what it is. That was kind of how I felt. I was like, something is going on, and I was actually ready to fucking go back across the country, because I was like, I never had this issue over there, because that's how you think.
Yeah.
Never had this problem over there. I ain't never been fired before in my life, and I worked most of my career in South Carolina, because that's where I was all those years,
Yeah.
I started off in Alabama. I went to school in Georgia, started off in Alabama, then went to South Carolina. Well, went back to Georgia, and then South Carolina. And then I think I lived in Maryland and Connecticut as well. Otherwise, those are other places, but mostly South Carolina. So I was like, on the East Coast, I never had this problem.
And we're in Maryland. We haven't had this conversation on Maryland.
Huh? Maryland?
Yeah.
So yeah, I moved to Maryland. My ex-husband worked for the federal government at the time. And so he was traveling and stuff. And at that time, we were trying to make our marriage go. That was one of those times. We decided we're going to try to, keep it going and blah, 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 even though, he was a cheater, but he had decided that he wasn't going to cheat
believed
anymore.
In your vows.
Believe in your vows, you believe
too.
what you said, and you're a good wife, because that's what you were raised to be, because you raised to be good wives when you were from the South, that's how we raised.
Well, I'm from Maryland, and I was raised that way too, so that's hilarious. We've never had this conversation about Maryland, but we got South Carolina and we got Maryland.
So Maryland, I was in Cumberland.
Okay. I grew up, all my summers I spent at Deep Creek Lake.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
family lake house.
That is so crazy, right?
Cumberland. I almost went. I had a full ride to Frostburg University.
Did you? It didn't go?
No, I was not staying in Maryland around my family.
Yeah, I feel you with all that. Yeah, that's kind of how I got to Alabama the first time, because I've been in Alabama a few times too. But yeah, I had to. Yeah, it was time to go.
I couldn't stay there. I couldn't. I knew if I stayed, I was going to become them. Mm-hmm. There would be no escaping. If I tried to establish stuff, I had to leave. I hated it. I had amazing friends. I had great people, great. I did have a great support system. Now, a lot of them didn't understand that I had to leave, because they didn't really know, and I say that they were a great support system, but they really didn't know. They knew the mask of what I did, but they didn't know what I was going home with every day and dealing with. So they didn't understand like what was my life about, because from the outside world, my life looked like it was okay.
Yep.
They just didn't know the real truth of it all. And so they didn't understand as to why I had to leave. They still don't understand as to why I had to leave and all that, because, well, they just don't listen. So,
well, and the other thing too is, people cover up. They cover up.
I was great at that.
I mean, we all are. I mean, for me, I believe, and I know that this is the case, that a lot of the things that I repressed is because I didn't want to deal with it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I was embarrassed. I was shamed by it.
I'm like, all the time I was like, you know what? No, I don't know. It's just almost like the marriage thing, like we went to church, we had our kids, and my ex-husband and I were both ministry leaders. So we were in ministry leadership. We had our kids at church. They were doing what they did, and they did stuff for the ministry and all that, because my kids were, they were servants just like their parents. Yeah. And so they, my kids were doing, my son did the rap team, and he worked for the camera ministry because they recorded, because it's a mega church there on Broad River Road.
Yeah.
And so we went there for about 7-8 years, I think it was about that we went. And so we covered up. So when we got ready to get divorced, people were like, they're getting divorced? And I'm like, yeah, because we had the white picket fence, we had the house, we had the 2 children, because I have a boy and a girl, and we presented this front and this face, and this is what people saw. And so when we said, we're fucking done with this, people were like, and this is the thing that I got. People were like, oh, it's her, because he's, his brother, he's
I got that
good.
too. Oh, I got that too.
He's wonderful. He is just such a good man. And, he's so faithful, and he does this for the ministry and blah, blah, blah. And, he's just wonderful. This is what I got.
Oh, and I got that too.
Okay. I'm the bitch. I could be the bitch. I'm good.
As I always told everyone, my favorite saying became, looks are deceiving. And still people don't even grasp that. That doesn't even blow. It's like, it still blows their mind. Like they don't get it. And I'm like,
I was going to say, and what I told him was, like, I had a girl that said, she came up to me one day, and I think I was done. I had enough. And so she came up to me and she's like, I just want to tell you, your husband, brother, he's so amazing. And, because he drives a church van, and he was over the transportation ministry. And so he would take her to get groceries sometimes, after service when they left or whatever. And he wasn't supposed to, but he would do this because he did have a kind heart as well as that. And so I said, wow, okay. So then she kept going on, and I was trying to get away from her because I was done with that. And so she kept going on and on. So finally I looked at her and I said, you want him? I said, because he'll be available in a little while. You can have him. At the church, girl. So I was like, you want him? You can have him. He'll be available in just a little while.
Please take him.
Take him.
Please.
But it's amazing when you think about that. You're like, because I mean, honestly, we wear these masks in life because people don't really know you. A lot of people,
and they don't care either.
Well, that's the other thing too.
They really don't, and they don't want to, except for those vampires and the drama queens. But they want it to turn it back around on you later.
Yes.
You know.
Yes. And it's funny that we talked about that, because that's like, oh wow. Like, oh shit, this is what's going on, and and it's wild because even for me, I went and got counseling afterwards. Not a lot, little bit, just enough to get through. And and it was funny because like I said, nobody knows the real thing. You think but you don't know, because we don't show that.
Nope.
You know, we're not telling that. That's one of the reasons why we decided to do this show, so we can tell the real, the scoop, the tea. You know, we don't
getting
spill the tea.
dirty, getting our hands dirty.
Yes. So we're telling you, you know, yes, you're going to go through a dark night of the soul when you decide that you're going to awaken, or when your awakening comes for you. Because
And you're not alone, though.
No, you're not alone. There are many of us that have dealt with that, you know, and a lot of people have walked through it, and a lot of people have done, you know, all kinds of things. Because, you know, when I think about it, I was like, damn, shit, I fucking got fired.
Yeah.
Never in life, you know what I mean? Like I said, and I quit many jobs because, you know, I always tell people I'm really a 2-year girl. You know, I can do a job about 2 years, and then after that, I need to go do something else, because I just, you know, I get bored, you know, and then I get tired of the same people and shit. And
Yeah.
especially if it's a bunch of drama, you know, because typically it is. But yeah, so I mean, when you think about that and you go into your life and you begin to really think and sit with that, because I think that is the major part of this,
The hardest part.
leavening. Mm-hmm.
And I think that's why people don't do it. And I'll tell you, like, Allison in Wonderland,
yes,
came into my mind like so much in my healing journey. And it's kind of funny because the Disney movies do pop into my head a lot, and maybe that's just my inner child, you know, coming out and playing. But when I really started to heal, the rabbit hole.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
What fell down? How did I fall down the rabbit hole? Mm-hmm. Well, you do have to go. You're in the rabbit hole, but guess what you got to do? If you want out, you got to make your way back. So how did you get back? And then that stupid Chester cat. Who are you? Who are you? You know, just kind of, and looking up at the moon, seeing the new moon, and seeing his smile, you know.
I was gonna say, I love it, because that is same thing. I was just giving somebody an example of the Lion King. You know, you can, you know, Rafiki said you can either run from it or you can learn from it.
And I ran from it all my childhood. I never learned the lessons. I never learned until, guess what? Tower fell down, smacked me straight in the face, and said, "Bitch, here you are. Everything you wanted to learn from,
you got it.
You got it." You know, because the truth is, your past is going to catch up to you.
Yeah,
you can hide all you want. You can hide all you want. The fact of the matter is if you want change, if you want real change, you got to take yourself out of the situation. You got to be able to look at your old self, your old habits, to be able. That means you're out of the program. You're out. You have to be able to recognize you did play a part. You did allow this. You did allow these things. You allowed these people. Whether it was because
whether you felt consciously allowed, but you still allowed it.
You did. Whether you were programmed from childhood to accept these behaviors or not. But if you want change, it's you. Yeah, and that's a hard thing sometimes, because we all think we're amazing. And well, I mean, a lot of people don't, and that's where mindset comes in. We have those self-doubts, we have that self-criticism, we have all of that, so that feeds into the non-healing. It feeds into all of that, but you have to embrace it. You have to, if you want the real change, if you want to know who you really are, cut it all out.
Yep. And it's not easy. So we have to say that. I mean, that's always a caveat. You have to say that it's not easy, because people, this is the other thing that people do that I've seen, and you've seen too, because we talked about that. They try to make this shit so simple. And it's like, no, either they make it so simple or they make it so hard. Right. You know what I mean? It's like, and it's not any of that really. I mean, it can be difficult for sure, but it doesn't have to be hard, and it doesn't have to be super simple either. No. You know what I mean?
No, you know, and so I think when I got into it, back into like my tarot and stuff like that, my tarot cards, you know, I kept having all these readings where it was the hermit, and it just was like, but I'm not.
That's me. That's me.
But see, I wasn't at that time, but it was me. But it wasn't, because the person who I betrayed at that time, the person who I put out there, was this go-getter. It was this person. I was involved in that I did everything to keep me busy.
Yes.
So I didn't have to feel.
Yep. Or think.
I was so
Yeah.
busy. I was
It's almost like it's another way to numb out.
I numbed it
No,
out. The fawning,
because
submission.
people always think drugs and alcohol, all that stuff, but no, you can numb out by being busy, by being, and I've been that too. I've done that, because I felt like that was the way to do it.
Yeah.
And they push that too in this environment.
Yeah. If you aren't, you're slacker, you're procrastinator, you're lazy.
You don't get up at 6 o'clock in the morning? What?
Yeah.
I told
you're not
somebody the other day.
exhausted by the time you go to bed. Oh, you take naps?
Right.
Guess what? I've learned the power nap, the 20-minute power nap. It is my best friend.
It's amazing.
But I had to embrace that. And I would get mad at the tarot cards because I was like, Hermit, that's not me. That's not me, and, but luckily, and what was great is COVID. COVID was a blessing in that, because right before COVID actually happened, a year before COVID happened, is when my tower moment really happened.
Okay.
And everything. So I had already started to adjust my life. But if that tower hadn't happened, oh my God, I don't even know what would have happened during COVID, because I was the go person. So like COVID actually became a blessing to allow me to even get more into my healing, because I'd already started. And now I was like, man, I like my butt print in my couch. Like, this is what a couch feels like, like,
right? Yeah.
Like, wow.
See, for me, I have a bed that's amazing and I love it. It's one of those hybrid beds, and then it has the thing where it goes up and down. You can raise your head and your feet. Yeah, I love it. My husband says I'm a taco sometimes in it. Because I raise my head and then put my feet up. He goes, sometimes I come home, I have to fight you because you're a taco in the bed. But I love my bed, and I'm like, ooh, anytime I can go and lay in my bed, and I don't even have to sleep, because we already talked about that. Sleep don't come easy. I'm Mary J. Blige. Sleep don't come easy, so I don't even worry about it. I just lay down, and when I lay down, I'm like, okay, I'm going to meditate for sure. So I meditate mostly laying down anyway, because I have had 3 back injuries in my career, and so my back does not sit up straight all the time. I just don't do it, and not without pain. And so I lay in my bed and meditate every time. Like when I, every once in a while I'll be up, but most of the time I stretch out in my bed. And even when we do like clearings, like what Sarah does and stuff, I wait till I can lay in my bed and put that thing on.
Yeah, I do too. When we do clearings, soul clearings, I'm laying down. Meditation though, I like to sit up, except lately I've been getting too deep where it's like I fall out, like I jerk and stuff.
That's what I'm saying. So if you lay down, you don't have that to worry about.
But see, I am gonna fall asleep, because I am that person. Like if I am laying down and my head's on my pillow, I'm gone in 5 minutes. I'm out.
That's a blessing. I'm so jealous.
I am out.
That is not me. I'm like, I take like 20 milligrams of damn melatonin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love sleep. That is that
and
projector in me. I love sleep. I am still that person. I can still sleep for 14 hours straight.
I can only sleep like that if I'm sick. Like when I'm sick, matter of fact, that's how my husband knows that I'm sick. He's like, oh, she's sleeping, because I don't sleep that much. And I'll lay down in the bed for 10 or 12 hours, but I don't generally sleep that long. I'll just be in the bed, and I'm okay.
Now, when I was married and completely unhappy in life, I never slept. Never slept. I mean, wow. Nothing. So, I mean, maybe it's also my body like catching up from all the years of sleep.
Yeah,
and
I believe that.
They
say you can't.
When they were little, they hated sleep. My kids hated sleep. They did not know what slept meant. They did not sleep. Now, luckily, they love sleep. Well, going to bed is a problem. Waking up though, like those 12 hours, 15 hours, like my kids will sleep. But so, which helps me because I get to sleep too. But
see, I was gonna say, my youngest, he didn't sleep all night until he was about 1.5 years. Yeah. No. But you know what? They went to bed at 9 o'clock because they had a bedtime. I didn't give a shit if they slept. But they gonna go to their room.
Yeah,
Because I'm not gonna be looking at them.
I was the mom lay down with the kids. Now my youngest son though was different because he was a sickly child. He was very, very sick. He like horrid stuff, but like he would nights I would have to wake him up because he was choking on his own puke.
Gotcha.
And stuff to sit him up. So I mean, he had to sleep with me type thing.
Right.
So,
and you had to sit, make sure that you were kind of aware too. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that makes it, that's different, but just regular, because they don't want to sleep.
That was my oldest.
It was my youngest. My oldest girl, I brought her home from the hospital and this bitch slept all night. All night. I mean, to be honest with you, I think that was why I felt like I would be okay having another one. Not that I consciously did it, because I got pregnant with that one on the pill.
Yeah.
Wasn't conscious because I didn't want no more damn kids. But when I got pregnant with him, I think that somewhere in my mind, I felt like, well, this is okay with the first one, because my first one was she was like a dream. I mean, I came home from the hospital. I had a C-section, so I was in the hospital for 3 days. I came home at that third day and put this bitch down at 8 o'clock at night, and she slept all night. And now, still, even now, she's a sleeper. She loved to sleep. But, it's crazy because all night. And so I was like, okay, well, and she was like, she didn't cry. She was not a crying baby. She was just the most amazing baby. And she was beautiful. So I was like, oh, I can have another one and, be okay. It'll be fine. And so when that other one came and he was the exact opposite, I used to call him my damn demon seed, because he was just a horrible ass baby. He cried all the time. And, and luckily we lived at home and I could take him to my grandparents. So my grandparents actually took my baby home from the hospital because I was almost dead, because I was dying. And so my grandparents took my baby home because they discharged him because he was fine.
Yeah.
But his mama was about to die, so my grandparents took him home. And so, when he would start acting really crazy and start crying, I couldn't get him to stop. I would call my grandparents and say, are you guys up? They were like, yeah. Like, I want to bring the baby. Come on. So I would bring the baby over because it was my grandfather's first great grandson.
Aww.
So, he was like,
through the roof.
That boy couldn't do no wrong, And so it was like, okay. And so I would take him over there, and girl, he would be screaming and hollering all the way fucking there in the car, like, which was 10-15 minutes, not far. And I would pick him up and give him to my grandmother. And this boy would stop crying immediately. And then they would say, you could go home and just leave him, or y'all could just spend the night, because I would have my daughter, and she'd be like, y'all could just spend the night, or you could just go home and leave him. So I would go home and leave him. Put me in my bed, take my daughter. And my daughter was so glad, because she would be like, Mommy, when's that baby gonna stop crying?
You gotta love kids.
But yeah, so you think about all that, you're like, and it's wild, because when I was pregnant with him, I was here in Washington State. My grandmother lived in Georgia. So she called me one day and she's like, how you doing? I was like, oh, I'm good. She's like, how's the baby? I was like, oh, she's good. She's like, not that one. I hadn't told a soul I was pregnant. Not a fucking soul knew. I barely knew, because the test came back negative, but I knew I was pregnant.
Old souls, old connections.
Girl, my grandmother was like, no, I'm talking about your son. I was barely pregnant.
Well, see, maybe there was a bigger connection there than you actually realized onto the She
I'm telling you, she was amazing like that anyway. She was gifted, and she was like, I'm talking about your son. She said, and she talked to me. And when she talked to me, of course, I started boohoo bawling, crying, because I was thinking about getting a damn abortion too. Because I was like, my baby was 10 months old. I got pregnant again. So I was like, oh shit, I don't want to do this. And I was like, And my husband was like, that's not my baby. I was like, well, I ain't slept with nobody else, so that's you. You do that. I don't do that. It's like, this baby's yours. And I thought about that thing, and I was like, wow, that was a lot of fucking drama. You know what I mean? Because even when I was 8 months pregnant, my ex called me he was in Washington, I was in Georgia, because I had gone home to have my baby because I already had one. And my mom was like, well, we can help you with the other baby, and all that stuff. And I was like, and he was getting out the military anyway, so we were planning to go back to Georgia anyway. Like I think August or something, and the baby was due in June. So I went and I was like, it's all good, this is what we're gonna do, whatever. And 8 months, I was 8 months pregnant. He called me and said that he was leaving me for another woman. All right. I was like, wow, girl, when I tell you, now I'm 22 years old. I cried and 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 I cried some more. I thought I was going to die because I just couldn't believe that this man was calling me when my belly was out to here. I gained 45 pounds with that baby. My belly's out to there, I'm huge, and I'm like, and already at that point, you're 22 years old too. You'd be thinking, ain't nobody gonna love you, with all these kids, and nobody's gonna, And so I cried and cried and cried. And so finally, my grandmother, bless her heart,
hey, that sound
got
don't mean good.
tired, and she slapped me in the name of Jesus, is what I said. She was like, you got to stop that crying. Stop it. He's not worth it, number one. She said, number two, you are going to kill your baby. She said, she said, the baby, she said, when people do that kind of stuff, she said, the babies are born with so much anxiety that it could kill them. And I think about it now, it's like, she was speaking energy even then.
Yeah.
Even then. And she wasn't, she didn't profess to be, and she didn't say, she was an intuitive healer or an energy worker or any of that stuff. She was a pastor, preacher, teacher, evangelist, prophetess type.
Yeah.
But she was speaking energy even then. I'm sitting here and it's like giving me chills right now. It's like, wow, because I always said, I knew that, I was the person that was supposed to carry on her destiny and her legacy. I'm the one. And I knew that, people, because she imparted so much into me, that I didn't even realize. Even now, things are coming up that she put in me.
Right. That's beautiful.
And it's like, wow, but I remember that thing so clear, because she was like, you kill your baby. And so, I immediately stopped. I don't know how I did that. I'm thinking about it now, because I cried and cried for days, but I immediately stopped, and got myself together.
You let it go. You released it. I mean, if you really look
it.
at it, the simple fact of that's what you did.
I did. I did. I let it go, released it. I was like, it's okay. And so then, when I had the baby, of course, I had a C-section the first time. And so they thought that I could have I could have the baby the second time, because they were like, we can't see a reason why you didn't have the baby. Well, you know what? Let me tell you the reason that I didn't know at the time. The reason was that when I was 17, my doctor did a D&C on me because I had endometriosis. And he said that it was the worst case of endometriosis he ever seen on somebody so young. He was like, you have anyway, so I was like, okay. And then he told my mom that I would never be able to birth a baby.
Yeah, I was gonna say, they're having endometriosis that bad and then having kids. Yeah.
Not even that, because when they do the D&C, they scrape that. Yeah. So it's okay then, but the longer you wait is the problem. But that wasn't it. He told my mom, he said, she is too small in there. She will never push a baby out. Yeah. Did she tell me? Hell no. Not till after. So of course I couldn't tell the doctors that this other doctor had already said that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I didn't know. So, it wasn't even my destiny to even be able to birth no babies, no way. But the wild part about it is my doctor, after I had my son and I had went through all these problems and nobody knew what that was either. Nobody diagnosed that. They don't know why that happened, like medically.
Right.
But I had a lady that was at our church. She was an intercessor, and they got her to pray for me. And so this is what she said she saw. She said that when she was inside my body, she said that there was adhesions there. She said, and they looked like this. She said, so because every time I could feel it, every time the contraction would try to push him down, he would go back up. And so, and consequently, he beat and bruised my organs. So like my lungs shut down, they thought my heart was shutting down, all kinds of shit, when I had this baby. And so she said that when she saw it, she said, when he was fighting to get back up, she said he was fighting for his life. She said, because if he would have tried to go through those adhesions like this, she said they would have cut him up. So I was like, okay. So what my doctor did say was, he sat me down after I come in for my 6-week appointment and all that stuff. And he was like, make sure you're not pregnant. I was like, I'm not pregnant because I ain't fucking nobody. Not, 6 weeks after a C-section. No, not me. Yeah. So anyway, he's like, okay, so I want to talk to you. And I was like, all right. And so he said, you almost died having that last baby. He said, and I'm afraid that if you get pregnant within the next 2 years, he said, I'm going to have to personally terminate. He said, because it'll either be your life, the baby's life, or both of y'all's life. He said, because you are not born to birth babies. My doctor told me this. I was like, and 22 years old, And so I was like, okay. He was like, yeah, you're not. And I was like, well, my mother had 4 kids and my grandmother had 10 and my other grandmother had 6 or 8 or something, a whole bunch of kids. So I was like, but he was like, yeah, you're not them. It was like, you are not born birth babies, especially not that close. He said, because what happened is you healed so fast. He said, that's how you got those adhesions. He said, because you healed so fast. He said, and so you are not, you can't. He was like, and then he's like, and if you have another baby, it's got to be C-section. He said, we can't even go that direction. So I felt like that ended my career with babies.
Yeah, kind of.
I was done. I was like, you know what? I almost died with that other one. I don't need no more. I got a boy and a girl. I mean, you can't have nothing but one of the same, right? I was like, I didn't want all the kids anyway. So, and then I ended up, having extra kids that I end up raising even afterwards, like I have a bonus son from South Carolina. Look, I got a bonus daughter, I was like, what the world, but it's amazing when you think about that and you see how that trajectory of your life was going, you know what I mean? Because I was like, I wasn't planning on having any more damn kids anyway, but I really got scared when he told me that. I was like, okay, and so I think about it. And then I thought, my mother had 4 kids. My sister has 2 kids, both C-section, a boy and a girl, just like me. And I was tripping. I was talking to her, I was like, wow, how is that? And she was high risk because she had asthma and was born with 1 kidney. So she was high risk with her kids. And I was like, how does that even work? Our mama had 4 kids. I was like, and we had 2 apiece. My brother has probably, I don't know, a whole bunch of kids, 6 or 7 or something, but he's not having the babies. You know what I mean?
No. Yeah.
We are. And I'm like, how does that even work? And so actually in all of that, as I started really unpacking all this stuff, in this journey, and then how we do. We unpack as we go. Yeah. As we need to. Right?
Because we hold space.
Yeah. And sometimes it's painful to unpack.
It is.
It's like, oh my God.
But it's so releasing. It's so beautiful when you do, because you just realize the weight of what was holding you down. You just realize all of that. And then it's like, then I think you go through the process too of, damn, I'm an idiot. Damn, I was stupid. Why did I hold on to that for so long? So then we automatically go to shaming and guilting ourselves. Again, we're right back into the cycle of it until we go.
It's a spiral is what it is, right?
It is.
It feels like a spiral. It's like, we already been there. Yeah. It's almost like, my husband always says, he's like, people always want to go back to Egypt. Yeah, they do. Egypt was hard. You was a slave in Egypt. you know, and I'm referring to, you know, the Bible reference of
Yeah.
when Moses got them out of Egypt and all that. Well, you know, it was hard. You know, your ass was a slave. You had to work all the time. You had to turn
But they were
the
provided for.
right. You had to turn the bricks into straw, but they were provided for. And so is that what you want?
Most
Is that
people
what you
do.
want? And that's the thing.
Yeah.
And what I realized
In some
also
ways, I
is
want to be provided for. You know, I have things that like I want that person, you know, to come and provide in for, but I'm not expecting that.
see, and that's the whole key, because I'm gonna tell you, that was what I said too. Because having one that wasn't a provider, I don't want
Yeah.
that no more.
Hell
You know
no,
what I
I
mean?
had that too.
And I mean, and he, you know, I can't. I mean,
Every
I
past
don't
relationship of mine, I've always been the provider.
see, and I'm not. That has not really been my experience in that way. But my ex, he, you know, he worked. He was always a worker, so it wasn't that. And I thank God for that now, because I see the work ethic in my kids.
Right.
You know, I
Yeah,
see the
no, that
work
wasn't
ethic.
there. And like my ex and stuff, but it, you know, and it goes back to providing. Like I'm always the provider because I've always been the provider. I
Yeah.
was the father, the mother, the
So you
caretaker
stay
of
in the divine
myself.
masculine, and that's not healthy either.
Oh, I rebelled. I completely rebelled, and I went full feminine.
Mhm.
Full feminine, you know, got rid of everything masculine. And guess
Mhm.
what? My life fell apart even more.
Right? Don't you
Yeah.
love when that happens? It's
Tell
like,
me what.
it's like, what, you just set it up so it can just fail?
Yeah, but no one explained to me on the divine masculine and the feminine. You know, I knew
So
I was in my masculine. I knew that was
you
an
had to
issue.
be, because you didn't have a masculine.
No, God, I
You
had
had
no
to be,
masculine in my
because you had to do it. That's the thing. It's like with me, now he, like I said, he worked always. He always worked. He just didn't fucking like to bring all his money home. That was our issue. He liked to shop. He was a shopper. And God, I have to say, God has blessed me, because I have actually two husbands that love to shop, but one that will pay bills first.
Yeah.
You know, the other one, he just loved to shop. He didn't give a fuck about the bills that we had.
That
You
was
know,
my
the
first husband.
light bill, and you know, because I remember one day I sent him to pay Mid Carolina. That's where we were at, Mid Carolina Electric, and I sent him down there to pay the damn bill, and he didn't pay it, and I didn't know. I didn't know till they turned my fucking lights off.
Yeah.
And I'm
My
like,
first husband was that way.
you're like this. I can't do this. And when you start to put your list together for the next one that you want, you're like, okay, no, but I don't want that. And so then you have to kind of
I
flip
got
it
a
around
massive,
so that you say what you do want and not what you don't.
I got a massive list of requirements.
Yeah. And it's okay. You can have that.
I have
And
high
I can
expectations
say,
because I'm a high expectation. I deserve,
girl, I'm a queen.
deserve the best.
I'm a
queen. I'm a
queen.
goddess.
I was going to say, and I know that I am spoiled. My husband will tell you I'm so spoiled. And I know that. And I'm okay with it. You know, I had to live my life that way. I'm good. You know, I was like, I think about that. It's like when I grew up, my parents split up, and I don't even know how old I was. Matter of fact, that was one of my things that I'm unpacking now, because I don't even know how old. I think I was, I don't know, 4 or 5. I don't even remember, because nobody told me.
Right.
I just went to stay with my grandmother, and I thought I was just going to stay with my grandmother because I did that all the time. You know, they would come get me. My mom lived in Connecticut, and my grandma would take the train up and come get me. You know, and this happened. Like every summer I was always there, you know. And so I just was like, okay. And I think it was a summer that I went, but I didn't go back. You know, and I was okay with that because I love my grandparents and I love to stay with them. You know, I felt special. And you know, but I think about it, it's like, okay, yeah, that was something, because I didn't even know. They didn't say anything. You know, my mom essentially just cut him out the picture.
Yeah.
You know, basically like, okay, he's just not there. You know, but didn't think to talk to me about it. You know, didn't think that it would affect me in that way. You know, and I was like, okay. And then, you know, I was like, all right, it's okay. But my grandfather was like so amazing too. You know, I love my grandfather. My grandparents were amazing. I loved them, girl. My grandfather loved me like I belonged to him. You know, he was just that type of grandfather. And so I didn't, and I think about it, I was like, I never experienced trauma in that way where a lot of people, when their parents split up, it's real traumatizing and all that stuff. I feel like I was shielded from that because I went to stay with my grandparents and I loved them so much. And I loved to, I wanted to stay with them anyway. So it was like, it worked out that way. You know what I mean? So it wasn't a trauma in that way because I didn't experience any of that, because my mama whipped me and my grandfather sent my grandma to get me because I called them and told them that she whipped me. So I was that rotten. I tell people, I'm like, I was just rotten. I know I was, but it wasn't a bad way. I wasn't like a terrible brat with it or whatever, but I was just rotten because that's how they did for me,
But you were
at that
loved.
time, I was loved. Yeah. And I didn't, because I was the only child for 9 years, and so everybody would, and at the time too, like some of my mother's sisters didn't have kids. So I was their child. So like they would take me to the fair. I remember stuff like that. And they would take me to the lake, stuff like that. They had the paddle boats and they would get in the paddle boats and we would get in the paddle boats and go out there on the lake and different things like that, so I can remember stuff like that because it was just beautiful. And like I said, I had love because, I was the child in the family for a minute, you know what I mean? And it's like before some of them had kids, because my mom, like I said, was 18 when she had me. So then I had like my auntie is like 10 years older than me.
Okay.
I have an uncle that's 6 or 7 years older than me. And I actually lived with them when I was little. So it was almost like having an older brother and an older sister.
Right.
So I think about that and it's like, okay, it's okay. It's all right. It was okay. It wasn't like, I tell people, I said, I thought about like this. I said, it really wasn't that bad of a trauma, but what we don't realize is that traumas don't have to be huge. They can be little bitty.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be that you were raped or, or beat with an extension cord or, it doesn't have to be that.
But each person, it's all to their own. And, there's the 3 T's of how you classify the trauma and how I look at it. It's too much, too fast, too soon.
Yes.
And to each person that's different. Each person that trauma is different to how it went to your nervous system and to different things like that. And so it's just different for each person, That's why you can't follow a textbook.
Exactly. Yeah. All right. So we almost been on here 2 hours.
I know. There's no one on here with us.
Right. Well, no, it is. I got 2 people.
Oh, I can't see it on mine. And it looks like there's a. Well, thank you all for staying with us.
No. I got it on the phone.
Whoop, whoop.
Because you can't do Zoom and have the Facebook on the same device because
I have to learn all this stuff.
Girl, it does girl, you'll know because it does. Hey baby, thank you for watching. But it does all this, it has all this feedback when you have them on the same device with the Facebook and the Zoom. That's why I had to click all that shit off because we were hearing us behind and all that. No. So that's
I gotta go to bed. I gotta get up in 4 hours for work.
She said she's still here. Oh yeah, that's what I said. I was like, she gotta get up. That's what I was telling you. I was like, let's get started because you gotta go.
But we can talk. And that's what's beautiful is because it's like it doesn't feel like 2 hours that we've even been discussing all of this because it's our passion. This is our passion of what we give back to people. And and the fact is we have been there and we've been through so much, like I've said,
yep, real talk.
There's not anything I can't relate to that you've been through.
Right. And that's the same. And it's like
I've been through it too.
Been through it.
Been there. Done that. Shake hands.
The way you look at it, that's what gets it for me. Because it's like, we talk about it and I know that a lot of times when I talk about some things I've been through, people are like, how does she talk about it so calm?
I get that all the time.
All
the time. Like
I was gonna say one thing is because I wrote a book about it.
Yeah.
So I'm healed. You know what I mean? I had to heal in order to write this damn book.
I'm gonna start writing my book.
You got to, because the thing is, it's such a healing process when you do that. Yeah. It really is. I mean, It heals you more than you even know. And then for me, because what I notice is when people read it and I look at the reviews, it just warms my heart because it's what I want to say. You know what I mean? It's like, I didn't write that book to get rich or none of that kind of stuff. I wouldn't even think about that. I wrote that book because I was healing and I wanted to help other people to heal. And I wanted people to know that regardless of what they went through, they can still come out on top.
You can.
You can still come out with roses and cherries. You can still look like you're 35 years old when you're 50.
Yeah. But it's that mind, you know, and like Tiara, her and I were talking last night, and you know, she just really kind of broke down the elements to me in a way that, you know, really hadn't been. But you know, your mind is the wind.
Yeah.
Your emotions is the water. You know, your passion is that fire. And I don't remember what she said about earth. I don't, because there ain't a damn bit of earth in me.
I can't think of it. I've heard it too. I'm a water. I mean, I have like Scorpio sun and Pisces moon.
Yeah, I'm an Aries
water
moon.
all around.
I'm an Aries moon.
Okay.
But yeah, you know, we're both Scorpios too. So I mean, there's that onto it. But there is no ground in me. And like right now, I'm just in that passion. I'm so fire right now. Like so. And you know, that's how I guess you sometimes also get the people's attentions of where you need to, because I got that flame. It's going bright.
And that's right. Because I mean, the thing is you attract who you are.
Yeah. But I used to not. I used to attract those nasty people.
Well, that's because you're a different person.
I am. I'm a healed person.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, okay, you know, you start looking at that, even where, you know, men are concerned.
Yeah.
Even men. Because I noticed that, you know, when I started healing, then I was able to attract a different type of man.
Yeah.
You know, some of the men that I asked for, because I'm gonna tell you, I wrote that shit out and I asked God for what I wanted.
Oh, I got a long list of
certain things, you know, certain things like I was, you know, I was on the kid thing because I was like, I do not want to raise any more fucking kids. I'm good. I don't want to do it. You know,
see, I'm different on that. I do love children.
love them. I love them. But I don't want them in my damn house. I'm good.
Oh, I want a house full of kids.
No.
House. That like.
See, you might want to get a younger man.
No, I'm not going for a younger man.
No. or you know what? Or a widow, you know, that already has the kids, because you don't want to deal with the mamas.
But you know, I'm good with that too, because I think like where I am on that, like my ex and I will never be on a good page. He's a narcissist. He's you know, he's demented. He is completely mentally and emotionally unstable. He is just, you know, and he's always going to be that way because he doesn't recognize and he will never heal any parts of himself. So that relationship will never be there. But I want, you know, my next person, you know, my divine, healthy, intellectual masculine, you know, if they have children and stuff like that, well, they're going to be divine. They're going to be healthy. So they're going to have a healthy relationship with that ex. That ex isn't going to be an issue. I
spoke that and said that, but that's not been the case for
Okay, well, I'm putting it out there, and I'm going to.
I was going to say, but you know, when you have a narcissist in the picture, you know how that can be, and that's what that is. So yeah, no, and but honestly, I really didn't even speak to that because that was not something that concerned me.
I don't necessarily do it. It doesn't matter on that person. I mean, it's our relationship, and then the relationship that the children all have and stuff like that, you know, because I can't. So, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of fun, but we do need to end this because I need to take my happy butt to bed.
Yeah, you need to go to bed. Okay, so we have enjoyed this. This has been amazing. We hope
you enjoyed us.
That's what I was going to say. We're going to shoot to do this next week again, probably earlier.
Yeah.
I won't be doing a 5 o'clock master class, so we can do it at 5.
Yeah, that works for me. That's 8 o'clock my time.
Yeah, that's what I said. That's good time, and it's good time East Coast time. When I try to think about that, because you know, but sometimes it's just not possible because you know, because West Coast is
we got schedules.
Later. I was gonna say, and they later. You know, West Coast, like I said, people rarely get up at like 6 a.m. over here. It's just not a thing. Unless they got to go to work. You know what I mean? It's just not a thing. Somebody sent me a message or like, well, I'm doing a master class at 8 o'clock Eastern time. I was like, oh girl, I ain't gonna do that. I'm not gonna be up at 5 a.m.
Yeah.
I said, I barely usually just be getting to sleep sometimes.
Right.
I was like, no, I know. I was like, girl, we don't do that over here. All right. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yes,
Kia,
thank you.
thank you for
And if
hanging
you
out
guys
with
have,
us.
hold on, I want to add, like, if for all you wonderful people who did join us, if there's any topics that you would like Tammy and I to discuss or to go into, hit us up.
DM. Yeah. You can either comment below the video wherever you see it, or you can
Or
DM
not-
either one of us and we'll,
Yeah, if you're not
we'll bring it
comfortable,
in.
you know, safe space. You'll always have a safe space with us to
Yes.
discuss, talk, reach out to us.
Because there's so
Because we-
many things that we can talk about.
We can talk about.
And we're going to talk about one of them next week.
We are.
Yes. So we'll
All right,
do
ladies.
that and we'll put that out and we'll let you guys know. And we appreciate all of you watching. Thank you, Brenda and Frandasia and Kia and whoever else is on here watching that I can't see. And those of you that catch the replay, make sure you hit #replay and let us know where you are watching from, because I
Yes.
always like to know that.
I do too. So we send
thank
positive vibes as well.
Exactly. So we'll send positive vibes to you and hope that you have a wonderful rest of your week. So Megan, bye.
Bye.
uh,